How we going, guys? Liam here, back with another tutorial video on how to use the simple ultimate money budget tracker. And the first thing I want to say, guys, is thank you so much for purchasing this ultimate money budget tracker, and I hope this tracker helps you get on top of your finances. Now, the first thing obviously is there is a guide tab on this ultimate money budget tracker. I've broken it down into simple little baby steps on how to actually use this budget tracker. I've provided annotations and images and short descriptions on what to actually do, so if you feel free to just go to this if you prefer to read through it and you learn better with looking at annotations. But for all your visual learners that like to follow along, feel free to stay tuned with the video with me right now. So essentially, the first tab you want to head to is the reporting categories tab. So this is where you want to define on the report of what you exactly want to track. So for example, in the subcategory box, you just want to be really specific on what your subcategories are. And what we mean by subcategories is groceries, fuel, car maintenance, gifts, gym, mortgage. So these are actual income sources and expenses that are actually going out of your account. So you want to make sure it's something that's running through your bank account. So keep that in mind. In the category column, you want to make sure you kind of brought it off. So groceries falls under living expenses, for example. Fuel and car maintenance falls under transport. Gifts and gym fall under voluntary because it's something that you don't have to spend money on to live. And mortgage, car loan, investment loan fall under debt. Obviously, salary falls under a fixed income source, and is so on and so forth. I could go on all day about categories. And in the category type column, you just want to list it if it's an expense or an income going through your account. So this is where you just want to be specific on what you want to track, and I guess how much you spend on each of these categories as well, because we'll get into more of that later when we go down the other tabs. But to essentially delete any tabs that you don't want, for example, let's say investment loan doesn't apply to you, or car loan, if you simply highlight the boxes and right click on it and go to delete and go delete table rows, that gets rid of that data and that won't show up on your report. But obviously, for the purpose of this video, we're going to be keeping it. And if you're just looking to rework this yourself, I'd suggest not deleting the top box, just highlight the rest of the boxes except the top two, otherwise it will stuff up the report, not picking up the data, and go your hardest. You can just go delete and delete rows, and that will get rid of all that. But if you're happy to keep all this and you're just looking to add more of your own data, always add from the bottom of the table. And the reason why I say this is because if you add it from to here and not directly underneath, it won't automatically add itself to the table. So if we're going to add another expense, for example, we want to track our own shampoo expenses. If we go shampoo, go tab, it automatically is now adding it to the table. Now we're going to put that under our living expenses. And if you're wanting to get emojis come up on, like I've got here, if you just press on Windows and semicolon, that's just going to bring up your emoji selection. So we could put down a toothbrush, but we're going to put down like a little home, because we've done that for our living expenses in the past. If we hit tab, there we go, it's under living expenses, and we're just going to put it as under expenses. There we go. And obviously, once you've added in your own categories, subcategories, and category types, always go to the data. Obviously, I was on there before, but make sure you go to data up in the main menu box, hit data, and go refresh all. When you hit refresh all, it's going to refresh all that new data and all that old data that you deleted onto the actual report itself, which I'll show you later down the track when we get there. But the next important tab is your budget tab. So as you can see here, this is where you want to put, I guess, how much money you want to budget for on each of your subcategories. For example, I've put down for groceries each month, I only want to spend $300 a month on groceries. So you want to define here, I guess, how much you want to spend each month on each of your subcategories. And as you can see as well, I've not put down car maintenance for each month. You can put it as, whatever kind of month you want to spend that kind of money. For example, I've put $800 in April and December for car maintenance. I want to spend that in. And for gym, it's every month. It's $20 I want to spend. For dividends, I only receive them every quarter, essentially. You can just put it however you really want to put it down as, but essentially I'm just defining it as how my expenses actually work in a real life situation. Now, for any expense, you want to put it as a negative value, and for any income, you want to put it as a positive value. The reason being is you want your report to pick up and track the expenses as expenses and your income as income. So make sure all expenses are negative values and all income values are positive values. So obviously, to add your own I guess, kind of budget figures to the table, head directly to the bottom of the table, go 2025, for example, we're going to put it as, it's automatically now going to add this new data to the table. Click on the drop down box and look for shampoo. There we go. If we click on shampoo, so for example, we only want to spend, you know, $30 every single 4 months. So April, we're going to only spend $30, and then in August, we only want to spend $30, and then in December, we only want to spend $30, for example. So there we go. We only want to spend $30 3 times in the year. And you can continue to do this, obviously, if you're looking to delete data, you know, say for example, we want to delete interest and dividends. If we highlight the boxes we want to delete, hover over delete, go delete table rows, that will get rid of that old data as you saw before. But remember, if you're looking to remove all this and start with a fresh page, make sure you leave the top 2 and just manually change the first one to whatever you like. Otherwise, it will stuff up the data reporting itself to the reporting tab. So obviously, once you've added in, I guess, how much you want to spend and budget for each month on your expenses and how much income you expect to go into your account each month, you can make your way all the way over to the bank transactions tab. But remembering, always refresh the data before you click on the next tab. Obviously, if you clicked on the next tab just before, you can just go back and hit refresh all, because that's just going to add and program the report to pick that up to record it down for the expense category, since we added it in onto the budgeted income and expenses table. Now, since we've added in, I guess, our kind of budget idea, what we want to spend each month and what we want to get each month, we want to head over to our bank transactions. So this is where you actually get real figures for your report to report on. So what I mean by that is, this is where you put down all your bank transactions of how much you actually spent on groceries for the month or week or fortnight, and how much you actually received from your job or dividends or rental income. So this is where you just want to put in all your bank transactions. As you can see, I've got here, I got, say for example, got paid on the 1st of January, 2,500. I'm actually going to put that down of that's how much I earned for that fortnight. And then for the next fortnight, I've earned obviously another 2,500. So pretty much, as long as you've got the date recorded down correctly, make sure all the dates are recorded down correctly so it can accurately track it on the report correctly. Obviously, put down the type of account it's come out of or gone through. And obviously, this may be different to yours, because I've got the only accounts that I use is credit, savings, and transaction. You may use a check account. You may use a different type of account, or it may be called something else in your own country. So feel free to change that to whatever you like. You don't have to specifically have all this, but essentially in the description box, you just want to put, obviously, if it's a Netflix expense, your mortgage expense. In the description, obviously, when you get paid, you can put down your company name, so that way you know you're getting paid by your work. And what the debit and income boxes mean essentially is, for any expenses that run through your account, put it under the debit amount, because obviously it's something that you're spending money on. And obviously the income box is where you're receiving income for either your job, dividends, interest, side hustle, however you receive income. And then you want to list it obviously under a subcategory. But obviously, to add your own data, for example, we're just going to be adding our shampoo expense in. So for example, it's coming out of our credit account, obviously remembering adding from the bottom of the table. So for example, we went into Coles on the 3rd of March of 2025, for example, and we're going to record down. So we went to Coles and we spent, let's say we went over budget, we spent $40, and now we just want to select that it was under our shampoo expense. So obviously, you can copy and paste CVS files directly, like that data of your bank transactions onto this table. You probably will have to work around adding the type of account it's coming out of and the subcategory it's come out of, and it may not be in this format as well. So do keep that in mind if you're just looking to directly copy and paste. I'm not going to show in today's video just because I want to keep it short and simple. And on here as well, you can pretty much track and look for specific transactions. So for example, we wanted to find out when we spent that $40 on shampoo. If we click on shampoo, boom, it comes up there. To remove any filters, you can just click on the red X up here and it'll bring back all your transactions. So you can specifically track transactions on here, and it's a lot easier to look for transactions on here than your bank statements, which I find really amazing and cool about this budget tracker. Now, obviously, once you've added in, obviously, all your bank transactions based off of your actual spend for the months or years that you wanted to track. If you want to refresh all on your data to make sure that new data you just inputted into the bank transactions tab is going to go to the report. Once you've done that, if you go into the report, as you can see, all that data we've added is now tracking on that report. So essentially what these two boxes are is they track your income. So this tracks your income on a monthly basis over 2025. So obviously it's ranging from 1 to 12. So 1 being January, 12 being December. It just pretty much tracks the income that you received, the actual income, then your budgeted income that you wanted to receive. So the green outline is what your budgeted income is, and then the actual green shading inside the little bar graph is what you actually received into your account for that month. So we fell shy of our actual budgeted income. We're very close to it in January, but I'm a little bit off in December, so you can actually see what you wanted to receive but what you actually received, which I find really cool, because then you actually get an idea, hey, actually budgeted for this amount, but I only actually got this amount. So it's very clear, I guess, in showing that as well. So for the donut graph, it just shows what type of income's been going through your account. So it tells me 98% is my salary, which is 10 grand I received for 2 of the months of the year. Then 1% is my side hustle for $150, and then 0% is interest for $50 that I've received into my account for the entire year. So this is tracking off of a year, unless you're filtering the data, which I'll show you later. So now this is my expenses by category. So this is tracking all my expenses over a year period. So keep that in mind. So this is the red outlines, obviously my budgeted expenses for the entire year, which is going all the way up to $17,090. So that's how much I only want to spend on all my living expenses, and I've only spent very minimal to what I actually predicted to spend. So this shading in the boxes, remember, is your actual spend. So I only paid $770 worth of debt when I budgeted to pay $9,600. Obviously this is unrealistic because it's not a whole year's worth of data for the shaded data to be close to the budgeted income, but obviously with inputting in your own data, it's going to be completely different to this. The same table, it's the income and the expense table here, pretty much the same in a way, because this is just tracking your expenses for each month. So obviously the outline is just tracking your budgeted income, your budgeted expense that you've kind of want to go for. Essentially, that's how much you only want to spend for those months. And for the month of January, let's try and talk properly. We only spent $2,355, so we spent under budget, which is awesome. Now for the personal profit and loss table, this is where it defines if you're under and over budget. So for the income we expected to run for accounts, as you can see, the X's here tell us that we are under our budgeted plan for what we actually wanted to receive in our accounts in income wise. And then for all our expenses, as you can see, this is what we actually spent on these expenses. We're under our actual budget, which is awesome. So all the ticks here represent that you actually are under budget, or you're over exceeding your income. So for this to be green ticks, you have to be either on budget or over the amount of income you receive for the entire year. Now, to obviously change and filter data, I'll show you in a second. These little headers up the top here also track, I guess, how much you've spent on your living expenses, your debts, your medical, your transport, insurance, eating out, and voluntary. These are also will change when you filter data. So we spent $910 for the entire year of 2025 on living expenses, and so on and so forth. It tells us how much we spent over the entire year. So with this tool as well, this will tell you if you're under your budget as well, which we are $40,085 under budget. So that's awesome. And we have an income surplus of $7,775 to be exact, and which is shown on this table here essentially. So these will pretty much just show you a yearly figure until you actually filter the data. So to filter the data, if you just click on a specific month, let's say for example we only want to track February. As you can see, the table's changed, so we ain't no income in February. As you can see, that's why nothing's coming up on the donut graph. And as you can see here, we didn't hit our budgeted income because we actually earn no income. And here we're completely under budget, and we have a income deficit of $30, because before it said we had an income surplus because we're earning income, and after expenses were taken out we still had money left over. Since we didn't earn anything and we spent $30, we're now in a deficit for that month, but we still are under our planned budget, which is pretty cool. So to obviously track multiple months, if you drag, for example, you want to track the next 4 months, you can see here we are now in an income deficit of $70. We're under budget by this amount. We spent $70 on our living expenses. Say now we want to track January and February. Now we've got an income surplus of $2,815. And to get rid of, obviously, the filters, again, click on the X, and that will bring all the data back. But that's just a simple, nice and easy rundown under at least 16 minutes, which is pretty good. Obviously, this one's 4 tabs, a bit more complex than just the first one I made. But if you've got any questions, guys, just let me know down in the comment section below, or reach out to me on my shop. But please refer to the guide as well if you do get stuck. But if the guide doesn't clarify your question, just reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. But thank you guys for your order again, and for purchasing this Ultimate Money Budget Tracker, and I hope to see you in my shop more often in the near future.